Hello my muñequitas and welcome back to my YouTube channel. First of all, I want to thank everyone for 1,000 subscribers. I literally cannot believe it. Thank you so much to all of you. It seriously means so much to me that so many people really care about what I'm doing and my little doll journey. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel if you really do like what you see so far. For this video, I'll actually be showing you the process to my doll, who I actually created for a collab that is being hosted by Snail Ooze Art Official on Instagram. I will link and tag everyone down below who is a part of the collab, including Snail Ooze Art Official, of course. And thank you so much for including me in this. I absolutely loved working on this and seeing everyone else's dolls. For this doll, I had a lot of fun and I actually really challenged myself. The theme of the collab was Psychedelic Forrest, and I really decided to push myself and try a whole bunch of things that I've literally never tried with doll repaint. So without further ado, let's get started. So for this doll, I wanted to use ayahuasca as inspiration. Now ayahuasca is a plant that is consumed to help along a spiritual journey. It is considered medicine to a lot of indigenous people, particularly in the area of, Peru and Ecuador and Colombia. It's very popular, again, like I said, to use for healing. The thing is, ayahuasca, while it can be a beautiful experience to help you grow, can also be a scary experience. Growing can always be scary, and sometimes when you take ayahuasca, you can see really scary things that you don't want to face. I've had family members take ayahuasca and they've told me about this, that it's a beautiful experience and they've done it when they have really needed spiritual healing, but it could still be scary, and I wanted to really capture that feeling into this doll. So I decided I wanted to give her these eyes that could follow you wherever you go. Kind of like when you look at ayahuasca, when you take ayahuasca, you can't escape facing yourself when you face ayahuasca. I also, of course, wanted to catch the beauty of this experience, so I decided to make it very colorful and very beautiful. And I also decided to use the actual tree bark that spirals as inspiration for her feet and her hair and her hands. I also added wings because I wanted to express how ayahuasca can take you to new places, new levels, spiritually and emotionally. Now with my little concept art explained, we can get started. For this, I'm using a Draculaura base doll. I remove the doll's hair and obviously clean her off with acetone. This is all done off screen, and I actually cut off holes for her eyes. I also cut the top of her head off so that way I can put on the tree bark piece later and it'll fit perfectly. To do the tree bark part, I'm going to need wire and pliers and the piece of the head that I cut off. Using pliers, I take some wire, I don't know the gauge, and I put it through and I twist it around. This is just to give it a strong base for when I sculpt on it using Apoxie sculpt. Bam! Movie magic. For the base of the head, I decided I wanted to create kind of like a helmet made of Worbla so that way it can just slide on easily and it wouldn't just be this one little sculpture thing coming on. So I saran wrap the head and I start to put masking tape on it so I can get a stencil. Once that's done, I start to draw lines where I know where I can cut, and I also start to draw lines to trace out the perimeters of this helmet, leaving space for her ears and deciding where, I guess you could say, the hairline would be. I also start to draw lines down the middle to create the form of the stencil. Then I cut all the stencil out into patterns so I can lay it flat onto some Worbla and cut the pattern out. Once I've cut all the Worbla patterns, I start to use my heat gun and adhere all the sides to it to create that little curve and start to form it to the shape of the head. As I add new pieces, I make sure that I heat up a little bit of both sides so that way they can easily connect and adhere to each other. Once all the Worbla pieces are in, I put in the piece of the scalp with the wire that I cut out earlier and I glue it all together, making sure that it all fits seamlessly and it all fits snug to the head. Now it's finally time for some sculpting. First, what I do is I take some aluminum foil and I lay down a base. I do this because I don't want the head to be too heavy and be toppling over, so this makes it possible so that way it's not that heavy. and I glue it onto the head using some glue gun and make sure that it's around in the position that I want it to be, facing forward and towards the side. It's finally time to bring out the big guns. Epoxy sculpt. Please use gloves with this. It's not good for your skin. I take both parts and I mix them together, then I work in little bits. I start to twirl it around the top of the head. I kind of make like this little snake thing because I know I want the tree bark to be a spiral. As I go, I start to thicken it up, adding some more epoxy clay because, you know, I want it to be like a thick bark, okay? A thick bark. She's thick, okay? And I also start to smooth it out and, you know, connect where I'd added the extra clay so it doesn't look all bumpy and stuff. You know, I want it to have like a natural texture, but to me it still matters that it's kind of seamless. It can't look like I just added on top of it. As I keep adding more clay, some of the, you know, folds in the spiral start to get a little lost, so I make sure that I just put in a little bit of cuts using this little sculpting tool that I have that was actually my mother's. I make sure to keep that on hand so every time I add pieces of, you know, the clay, I'm able to add some more detail to it. And I just go little by little around the head. Once I'm happy with a particular area and the sculpt, I make sure to add in these like little scratches to be reminiscent of tree bark. Once I finished with all the sculpture on the head, it's time for some wire to add some branches. So I just take some wire and I twist them and I add them in somewhere, and then I'll be adding clay onto them to make them stronger. This part was so tedious because they kept moving. You have to be super, super careful. I ended up having to go back in and add some little scratches in to, you know, over parts that I ended up squeezing too hard because I was trying to fix the little branches at the top of the head. But patience is key. You know, I probably should have, you know, added the wire from the base of the head with these pieces coming out so it'd be easier, but I didn't think about that. So it's okay. I added myself more problem, but it's okay, you know, whatever. It is what it is. I also added some little bits of remainder clay at the base of the branches to make sure they wouldn't move around so much because, like I said, they were moving a lot. And I also wanted it to be the seamless, not just to be like this tree bark and then these sticks coming out. Once that nightmare is over, I start to remove the cap so I can save it and paint it for later. I then decide it's time for the hair. I got this hair from CustomDollHairAu on Etsy. I will link down below. This is a kinky nylon hair. They're both different blends, one with purple and pink and one with yellow and pink. I absolutely love it. I think it is so cute. I was so excited when I got it. I tie this together so that later I can put it in a ponytail where the tree bark is. Now it's time for the most experimental part of the video. I basically take all these acrylic paints and I lay them out with different colors and I water them all down. And I do like this kind of water marbly thing. I add a lot of water into the paints and I just keep layering, adding more, and letting the paints drip wherever they wish to drip. I discovered that the best method for this was to lay it down very loosely, but the areas you want the coolest effect are not the areas you will be directly painting on. So for example, the front of the body, I want it to look cool, so it would be better if I added more paint on the sides and then the drip would go onto the front and it would be a natural cool swirl effect. For this, I use the colors of like neon orange, neon green, like a lime green, magenta, purple, blue, this beautiful light blue color, which doesn't really show up, but I do try to layer it. I will go back later once I do start doing the face up, and I will take some colored pencils to make some of the colors pop a little bit more and, you know, help them be seen. I repeat the same process with the legs. Like I said, I start off the side because I want the front side to be the part with the coolest like water marble effect. I do the same thing with the arms, and I feel like I got a better hang of this by the time I did the legs. I maybe should have started with the legs or the arms, but I really did actually enjoy this process. It was a little bit chaotic and a little nerve-wracking. It's good to have a paper towel on hand for if you accidentally put like too much watery paint on it, to just dab a little bit of the excess, because you don't want it to mix too much and turn into this brown yucky color. I will occasionally let some areas dry and then I'll layer them on. I don't know if you could see here, but I did have orange on the knees and I just wanted to blend that out a little bit, make it a little bit more marbly. So I do add more on. So it's good to just walk away, let it do its thing, and then come back and add more. Another thing I did is I made sure to try to keep very light colors near all the joints, because that way if it came off, it would just be the natural pink showing and you wouldn't really be able to tell. That was just a preference I made because honestly I have never really hardcore painted a doll like this before, and I think I'd be really sad if it started like chafing and then you would see purple and then a sudden like light pink. This is the part where I start to deviate and I give her a little pedicure, because at this point I'm not sure if I want to give her hardcore roots. Finally, it's time for the best part of the video, everyone's favorite part of the video, my favorite part of the video, is the face up. I first give her some blue eyeliner and then I start to give her some shadows on her face using this pink color. I don't really like to use blacks, I feel like it's really harsh. I did learn in school a little bit about painting, and one of the things they tell you is to avoid using blacks at all colors. It flattens out a drawing, it makes it look less realistic. So I used, you know, like a cute pink, a magenta for that. I also decided to give her these cute little funky eyebrows, you know, I don't know, alien-like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I just wanted to have fun with it, and I really like this kind of like almost blob shaped eyebrow. I think it is such a fun design. I love it every time I see it, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it, girl. As I go, I also make sure to add in some whites like on the eyelids and around the eyebrows to make it pop, so I can start building up some dimension in her face. Here for her nose, I use the same color as I said before, not black, like a kind of magenta color, and I actually start to widen up her nose a little bit. I wanted to change her nose. I like the Dracula nose, but I do want all of my dolls to look different. Also want her cheekbones to be very high, very prominent, which I know is not part of the Dracula doll, but I do use some blushing for that. I use like a pink reddish tone with a hint of purple on both cheeks. And I do try to clean it up a little bit with my finger using the cloth so it can look cut. I like to add little white lines in her eyebrows to just like accentuate, add dimension, make it pop, you know, multiple colors, always a good thing. And I also start to go in the waterline using blue acrylic paint just so it can look really nice and clean. I will be gluing lashes later on with the same color. Putting these lashes on was a nightmare. I used white Elmers glue. It took so many times, but thanks to movie magic, it looks like it was so easy. Then you know the drill. I add some glossy varnish. Gotta make her lips look kissable. I am making follow me eyes, which is actually really simple. All you do is you draw an eye, which I did on Photoshop, and you put on these little glass domes on top of it. I don't know why, but that effect makes the eye look like it's following you, and then I just adhere them to the inside of the head with some epoxy sculpt and make sure they look like they're both facing straight when I'm looking straight onto her. Creepy. Now it's time to start painting the head part, the little branch part. I do this starting off with the blue base, and then I gradually start to lighten it with green and then even a lighter green. I just thought adding a blue would, you know, be a nice darker shade rather than just a dark green. Add some more color to it, make it look nice. I use a small brush and I make sure to get all to the crevices. I then start painting brown for a base color, and now later I'll be using a watered down black acrylic paint to create a little bit more depth to it, and I'll be brushing on some light orange paint afterwards to again add more dimension and more highlights to this. For the watered down black acrylic paint, I make sure to keep some paper towels or napkins around to just brush off the excess so I can see what I have left and if I need to reapply more. For adding highlight, I'm using a dry brushing technique where I just take some of the excess paint off and I brush it on lightly to help add some highlight. Now, for some twine slash vine things I'm gonna do, I'm taking this I don't even know what it is. It looks like some twine that I got from a flower arrangement. I just put Elmer's glue on it to make sure it doesn't come undone. And then I just paint it with brown acrylic paint. I make sure to completely cover it. Once I have two pieces done, I'm going to twist them together. So in the direction that both of the twines are twisting, I'm going to twist in the opposite direction so that way it won't unravel. I'm not sure if that makes sense. There are tutorials on that. I don't know what the braid is called. Good luck. Now it's time to put on the little twine vines we just made and wrap it onto the body. I decided to go against my initial drawing and do kind of like a bondage type situation. I don't know why. I just did. I thought it would look cute. I thought it would look pretty, and I'm super happy that I changed it. I definitely feel like the one in my original design was a little too simple. I just hold this down with hot glue, but you have to put a lot of hot glue. I did end up having to re-glue it later, and I also add a little strip in the back, so she got a little thong, I guess you could say it's a thong, whatever. But I just connect that all together with glue gun using the vines I made before this. Then I add a couple more vines on the side to hold, I guess, her chest, her boobs. I don't know, I just wanted it to look cute, and I do this on both sides. Now it's time for the most taxing part of this video, the little leaves I made. I made them so tiny, but by movie magic it will look like I have it done in 10 seconds. I'm going to take these little leaves and I'm going to use it to cover her chest area. Usually I would free the nip, but I don't know. I just didn't. I don't know. I was showing my grandma these things. I add a little bit of wire and then I connect it with Gorilla Glue to her, I guess, top bondage thing. After that's done, I dry brush with some orange to make it really pop. I'm now going to make more vines using wire and floral tape. This is made out of wire simply because I want to be able to pose it and I want it to look good, and I will be gluing leaves onto it afterwards. Using my handy dandy E6000 glue, I put little drops using a toothpick and I put little pieces of leaves on it, and I just put it all over the little vine until I'm happy with how it looks. I make a couple of these little vines with little leaves attached and I start to glue it on, again using E6000 glue and a toothpick, to the body area, the little bondage thing. I want her to be a little bit covered up, almost like, you know, nature is growing on her, so I thought this would look really cute. As much as I made jokes about the thong, I actually don't like the thong look, so I also make sure to add vines in the back, and I also add more little leaves all over to decorate. For the ayahuasca flowers, I actually used a hole puncher that was actually kind of broken, so I was able to cut out a half circle and then like a little V shape, and that would form the petals, and then I could glue it all together using E6000 glue, toothpicks, tweezers, and lots of patience. I also made a hole through the middle of each flower with a needle. And then through the needle, I would thread thin wire through, and then I would glue these little like floral white things that I found. I then repeat the same process where I take floral tape and I wrap it around the wire so it looks like a cute little stem. And then I will be placing it onto the body into different areas to just make it pop all over her front and her back. Now I'm going to be adding moss that I got at the dollar store here. First I lay down some white Elmer's glue and then I sprinkle a little moss on. Pretty simple. To add some dimension to the moss, I take some neon green paint and I paint it towards the top corners of this headpiece. Here I'm using some hot glue gun and I'm making her these long, beautiful nails. I then paint her nails the same shade of blue that I painted her eyelashes. For her wrist vines, I employ the same wire floral tape technique and I just twist it around each other and then I wrap it around her wrists and I paint it brown. Dry brushing technique with a light orange so it can really pop and have dimension. I then finish it off with adding some leaves. Using wire Worbla and wire pliers, I will be making her little foot part that I drew in my original design. I decided to change from what I initially had and just kind of make like a wrap around over her foot rather than a whole trunk situation. So to do that, I take the Worbla, I twist it around and I put it on top of some wire. Now careful with this because the Worbla was too hot and I accidentally ended up taking some of the paint off. I fix it later, but don't be like me and don't press too hard. Here I'm repeating the same technique with the floral tape over the wire to cover it up to make it look a little bit viney and a little bit like bark. I also use the twine painted and I take that and I put it towards the bottom of the feet to just add a little bit more intricacies. To add on these little vines, I use E6000 glue and I also use a pin so that way it doesn't move while I'm gluing it. I reheat the Worbla a little bit and with my X-Acto blade I start putting little lines into it to make it look like bark. Finally, I paint it with an orange pinkish color and I'm going to turn it into a gradient, fading into brown. Then using my finger, I dab on some orange to again create a pop, some highlights. Bam! Finally, it's time to add the headpiece onto the head, so I attach the head back onto the body. I do this by heating it up a little bit with a heat gun so that way I don't crack any of it. And then I just slide on the headpiece until it fits nice and snug. Here I'm just reattaching a piece of the sculpture that came off with some crazy glue. I then give the headpiece the same treatment with adding on leaves and little pieces of flower, and I even add some little vines. And I also put some glue gun to then attach the beautiful hair that we made before. Onto the most frustrating and newest part of this video, the part I was least confident, is the wings. I used some diamond glaze and I laid it down on top of some transfer paper where I printed out the wings. The wings didn't actually come as dark as I liked, but it was fine for a base, so it was totally fine. Here I'm grabbing a toothpick and I'm just smoothing out the edges and making sure to pop any bubbles. On the side drawing, I take some wire and I start making the little swirly thingies. I do this simply because I thought it would look cute and also to add a little bit of structure to the wings. I didn't know if maybe the diamond glaze would just snap off, so I just take some wires and some random things around to make it nice. Once that first layer of diamond glaze is dried, I put on the wires little by little and I put a little bit of diamond glaze on, making sure it lays completely flat. This was so frustrating. The wires kept moving around, but I just tried my best and I made sure to fill in between the wires with diamond glaze so it could have like a nice, puffed look. I also flip it over and add diamond glaze to the back of it once the front side with the wire is completely dry, and I make sure to smooth it out using some toothpick. Once both sides are completely dry, it is time for some Angelina film. I adhere the Angelina film on top of some diamond glaze and I just flat it out as much as I can and I leave it there to dry. On retrospect, I would have definitely used an adhesive spray. It took way too long for that to dry. I then add another layer of diamond glaze, and once it's spread out evenly, I sprinkle it with some glitter. Some of this teal glitter I thought would look so cute. Unfortunately for me, I lost the footage to this. I have no idea where it went, but I did paint the edges with metallic blue acrylic paint. I did add a couple layers just to make sure that it would be really strong and really vibrant. Now for the absolute last part of this tutorial, I am making a stand. I take some green felt and a Barbie stand that I have. The Barbie stand was a little too big, so I heat it up with the heat gun and then I bend the edges a little bit so that way my doll won't fall out. I then trace the base of the stand onto felt and I make sure to cut out with a hole puncher the hole where the stand would come out. once I like how it fits, I add some E6000 glue and I press it down as hard as I can. I also made sure to cut some excess felt out at the edges so I can glue it down along the sides. After that, I take some glue gun and I glue some of the extra moss that I had lying around from the headpiece. I do the same treatment as the headpiece and I add some neon green paint on top just to make it pop and again add more highlight and dimension to this. I lied, that wasn't the last part of the tutorial. The last part is to drill a hole in the back of my doll so I can put in her wings. I did actually lose the footage for this, but I put in some wire and I secured it with some crazy glue. With the wings finally put in, that means it is the end of the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Now it is time to see my dear Ayahuasca. Una vueltita a la muñequita.